Thank you, Ross. And can I say what a pleasure it is to take part in this 172nd annual Earl Marischal to debate and to respond to the proposition that this House has no confidence in the Scottish Government. Now, having no confidence in the government, I would suggest, implies having at least some confidence in the opposition. But over the last few months, the official opposition in Scotland, the Conservatives, have been led by two politicians stuck in parliaments that neither of them wanted to be in. And Baroness Davidson has apparently got so much confidence in the Conservatives' ability to win an election in Scotland that she herself is off to the House of Lords. And we are in quite a remarkable situation that after 14 years of the SNP being in power, and for the second Holyrood election in a row, the people are once again on course to re-elect the government and sack the opposition. All of which rather begs the question of why, if the Scottish Government is doing such a poor job, why the principal parties of opposition are currently slugging it out for third place instead of making their pitches as governments in waiting. I think we need to ask ourselves why that is, and I think there are a number of reasons for that. The first of those reasons comes because we have a tale of two governments in their priorities and values respectively. People know the Scottish Government doesn't get everything right. We've had a list there from Neil, which in some respects indicates as much. However, what people do trust is the willingness and the ability of the Scottish Government to do its best for those it represents, even through a period of prolonged Westminster austerity. And they're entirely unsurprised, in contrast, when the UK Government does its worst. This week, we saw the UK Government announce a 1% pay rise for the NHS staff who've worked so hard to take us through the pandemic. In contrast, in Scotland, NHS staff will get a 4% rise. This week, we also saw the Scottish Parliament vote unanimously to directly incorporate the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child into domestic law. In contrast, at Westminster, we saw the UK Government announce its intention to spend hundreds of millions of pounds, increasing the number of Trident warheads from 180 to 240. I'll take a point of information from Neil Findlay.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I wonder if you could address some of the points that are made in the litany of failures that the government has overseen.
I'll be glad to address them in open debate later, Neil. I want to make some progress, but I don't think that you can entirely divorce the powers and the resourcing of the Scottish Parliament from some of the decisions, some of the outcomes that you've been speaking about. The Scottish Government has put Scotland on the map, delivering many bold, progressive, world-leading policies, such as maintaining free tuition, free prescriptions, free personal care, free sanitary products, with world-leading climate targets, rebalancing income tax to shift the burden away from the lowest paid onto those who are better able to pay their share, an energy transition fund to drive the green recovery, free bus travel for under-19s, expanding that to under-22s, and the game changer, 600 hours of free high-quality childcare expanding to 1,140 hours. But how much more could be done if we were fully in control of our resources, instead of, as we've seen with the furlough scheme, having to wait for Westminster to reach the same conclusions for the rest of the UK before the necessary resource begins to feed through? I'll take a point of information from Andrew Bowie.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for giving way. I don't doubt that the Scottish Government has managed to achieve something in 13 years in office, but it would be remiss of I think anybody here not to point out that free sanitary products was actually a result of, I think, Labour a Labour push in the Scottish Parliament. Free travel was a proposition first from the Green Party. Free personal care was introduced under the first coalition government in the Scottish Parliament, and everything else you listed has come about in the last 1 month of this 13 years of SNP government, almost as if you were rushing policy through, so as if you had something to show for your 30 years of government ahead of this Scottish election. You cannot, Richard, argue for 1 minute that we should have a vote of confidence in this government. There's very little to commend the Scottish government for 13 years in office. You have to agree with me.
No, I don't, and I don't know if that intervention will come out your own speaking time, but certainly in terms of free personal care, there was free nursing care has been provided by the Scottish Government, and the Scottish Government has maintained these priorities throughout what has been one of the toughest lots of public spending rounds. And I think that it's rather churlish, Andrew, if you don't mind me saying so, not to acknowledge what has been done in order to maintain that. I think the other tale of two governments is that in Westminster we see leadership matters, and we see a profoundly unserious politician who has utterly debased the currency of truth and plain speaking in politics, who's blundered his way through the pandemic response and led us to a position where we are, through Brexit, increasingly isolated in political and trading terms from our closest allies in Europe, and where future generations to come will have fewer opportunities than their parents. In contrast, people in Scotland, whatever their views, can see a First Minister who knows her own fallibility, who doesn't pretend to get everything right, but who, in contrast to her counterpart in Downing Street, is mentally and physically present when the big decisions need to be taken, and who genuinely seeks to act in the best interests at all times of those she represents. So there can be no greater priority right now than to win the battle against the pandemic. However, afterwards, Scotland's recovery and the means of delivering that recovery needs to be in Scotland's hands, not Boris Johnson's. That means that the people of Scotland must have the right to decide their future in an independence referendum when the COVID crisis is over. Now, of course, the verdict that matters most is the verdict of the people of Scotland on the 6th of May. I believe now, more than ever, is a time for experienced leadership in government as we continue with the most important task we have of keeping Scotland safe. My party's campaign will be about raising up, not tearing down. It will be full of optimism and hope for a better Scotland. And over these next 6 weeks, we'll be setting out our plans to protect the NHS, for a national care service, and to protect and create jobs as we get on with the job of building a better Scotland. And that optimism, hope, and sense of possibility is founded on a total belief in the abilities and talents of all the people who choose to make their lives here. I share Neil's passion for a fairer society, but we also need to make sure we've got the democratic tools to deliver it and the resources to deliver it, more of those things rather than fewer. It's that faith in the future of Scotland to embrace it. That's why I'm confident that the people of Scotland will continue to demonstrate their confidence in the Scottish National Party government on the 6th of May. Thank you.
So today it was announced that in 2020, renewables met 97% of Scotland's electricity demand. What more do you think that the Scottish Government can do to address the climate crisis?
I think that's a great question. I think it's worth taking time just to go back over that figure, that we actually met 97% of our domestic and I believe also our industrial need for electricity through renewables. Now, many years ago, it was thought that was an unachievable target. I remember when I was a councillor in Aberdeenshire sitting through planning applications for wind turbines, and it was a pretty tortuous process, but every single one has in the end contributed towards maintaining aspects of the rural economy where it's been those ones, but it's contributed to that wider goal. Now, I have to say, I've got an intrinsic bias towards renewable energy. My father was an electrical engineer at Cruachan Power Station in Argyll, and he made in there, so if it wasn't for hydropower stations, I probably wouldn't be here. But I think that there's a great deal more that we should be doing. I mean, we had the hydrogen economy is going to be absolutely vital, and I would really love to see Scotland being leading and taking a good industrial strategy in terms of pushing on and that developing and industrialising that technology instead of we could have industrialised the onshore wind opportunities and we didn't. So I hope that with this opportunity coming and that we've got good sight of it, I hope we can drive forward in that. There's other things that it's important to do, like the decarbonisation of rail. That's going to particularly have an impact north of Perth through electrification and all the rest of it. Since that's our geographical point of reference for the evening, clearly, I think that decarbonising rail is going to be very, very big. It's about decarbonising heating and transport. Those are the next big things. But I think, and Neil will maybe like this, it needs that kind of spirit of this is something that shall be done and we shall go and do it. And I think that's been missing for a while. it was the North of Scotland Hydroelectric Board was what really set us down the road to embracing renewable energy, even though we didn't really recognise it at that time. It was a Labour Secretary of State for Scotland, Tom Johnson, who used all the powers of his office to drive that for power to the Glens. And it's that same sort of purpose that we need. We've got a different mixed economy now than we had immediately post-war, but that's the sort of unity of purpose that we're going to need if we're going to get the full advantage and industrial benefits out of the hydrogen economy that's coming. And we're particularly well placed to do that in the Northeast if we start doing the right things about it.